With commentary and analysis on our hometown teams, this is the Bucky and Sully Show. Presented by Dave's Christmas Wonderland. 2 locations, Union Road, Cheektowaga, and Transit Road, Williamsville. Now, from the WBBZ-TV studio, here are Buffalo News sports columnists Bucky Gleason and Jerry Sullivan.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bucky and Sully Show. I'm Bucky Gleason. I'm here with Jerry Sullivan, who took a little blow last week. He's back, looking like Don Johnson. What's that? Oh, is that the money that you're paying me in quarters?
That's your $5.
I forgot about it.
I couldn't find a $5 bill. You could send. You should send it to Grayson Allen. By the way, he's the guy that won it for you. Was that an amazing performance?
I don't care who won it. I'm just happy I did.
There's a few pennies too, but you know.
I see that digging through your ashtray. Hey, let's get right to it, Sully. A couple things. One, we're going to go over Ted Nolan's firing in the first segment. Then we're going to come back and discuss UB's hiring of Nate Oates in the second segment. Sully, you were there today, so we will check in with you. First, though, the news of the day, the news of the weekend, is Ted Nolan is out as the Sabres coach after, what, not even 2 full seasons.
I don't know. Is it even 2 full seasons going back to 1997? I get confused. He's been done wrong by them twice now. Now, I'm sure he's been well compensated, but still, he was set up to fail.
He was absolutely set up to fail. There's no question about that. If you look at the roster, I don't think anybody can really debate that, Sully, whether or not he was put in a position to win. He wasn't. I mean, let's be honest. But here's the thing with him. I said it before on the show, and I'm going to say it again. It's also going to be in tomorrow's paper, and it's on today's blog. I don't feel bad for Ted Nolan, and I never did, other than the circumstances that he was given. Look, he understood the situation, Sully, when he signed the contract. His name is on the contract. He knew what was going to happen before he signed it. He signed it. He ended up with a nice chunk of money that he wouldn't have had already.
You're talking about the extension.
I'm talking about the extension.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good deal for him. He had to coach 1 season. He's going to get paid for 3 seasons. So I feel bad that Ted Nolan got put in a position that he had to deal with the last place team and a management that was insistent on tanking and throwing away a whole season, if not 2. Yeah, that's a tough deal. But you know what? If you're going to pay me for 3 years to work 1 and have to put up with that, that's not a bad deal. So I don't feel sorry for him.
Except when it comes to his pride and the fact that he's a competitor, and I saw what he did at Latvia and how much he can affect a team, and you want to win, right?
Sure you do.
So I mean, he might never coach again. I understand what you're saying. He was well compensated to be abused by this organization. This idea that Murray is advancing yesterday, that well, they really weren't tanking. They could have finished 23rd or something. Look, Mark Pysyk would have been up if they weren't tanking. Right? I mean,
yes.
So, I mean, there's so many pieces of evidence here. They did everything they could to finish last. Could they have finished 28th with the talent? Yes, they almost won a lot of games. They had a little streak early in the year, but the bottom line is that general manager wanted to finish last. The owner wanted to finish last. No one can convince me otherwise. And this coach was in the position to finish last.
You got that, I think, in reverse order. It was the owner that wanted to finish last, and he passed that order down through management. You know, you could blame Murray for a lot of things, one of which is dealing with this, putting up with this, instead of saying, look, I want to build my own team and I want to win right away. I want to get this team to the playoffs. He didn't do those things. That's fine. It came from ownership through the president down to Tim Murray and then funneled into that dressing room. Now, Ted Nolan wasn't buying it. He was trying to do everything that he could to prevent that from happening, which is why you hear about him tapping into the players' passion and all these other emotional type things. He did everything he could. He did his job. He did develop players. He did the best that he could with what he had, which wasn't much. They weren't tanking. So the next time you hear the Sabres talk about how they're a big family, just remember that they had half the organization looking to throw 2 seasons away, and they had a coach and his players not looking to do that at all. They were completely divided.
And the fans are ecstatic. You talk as if Pagula actually told him to tank. You sound like you have some information there.
Well, that's the way that I understand it. I mean,
well, what else could have been?
What else could it have been? Or he would have put a stop to it, right? I mean, Tim Murray can't sit there and say that, oh, no, we weren't tanking. It's either one of 2 things, Sully. You know this as well as I do. You're either tanking or you're a terrible general manager and you didn't do enough in your time here to get better. Because this was a repeat of last season, only worse. Maybe not by the numbers so much, but it was worse.
Now we find out about Murray. And it really, the idea I'm hearing on various outlets, he's a genius. He did such a great job to get him to the position they're in. And look, he did things a lot of fantasy sports players could have done. Some of these trades, I thought he overpaid for Evander Kane. He made a couple of shrewd deals that maybe Darcy wouldn't have had the guts to do. But please spare me with making a guy to be a genius because he managed to finish 30th. I want to see what he does now. Now's the time. Gloves are off. No more honeymoon period. If you call 30th a honeymoon, I don't know what these knuckleheads that wanted to tank, what they consider happiness. Let's find out now about the general manager. He tore it down. Let's see him build it back up.
Sully, anybody could tear it down. You could tear it down. I could tear it down. You could get some kid off the street who's 7 years old to tear it down. That's the easy part. Anybody can finish 30th. I actually think that there is some brilliance in there in how this was done, because he was able to make it was a facade, obviously, but he was able to make them just bad enough to finish last, and yet it was close enough and interesting enough where it could have gone the other way, that if he really, really had to, if the league was going to come down on him, he could come back and say, we almost didn't finish 30th. We almost finished 29th.
Yeah, because someone else was trying to tank.
Exactly.
I mean, they're two worst records they've ever had, I think. I mean, how much worse could it be? I mean, could they have gotten 40 points? I don't know.
Well, we're going to see what Tim Murray can do.
You're giving him too much credit for finessing it, I think.
And you might be right about that. I might regret saying that or thinking that. That's been known to happen before. But when you look at the players that you're getting, Connor McDavid, look, all of this tank stuff, who should tank, are they tanking, pro-tank, anti-tank, it got so nauseating, Sully, as the season got on. It just got so tiresome. My position on this, by the way, has not changed. But at the end of it, you're going to end up with one of these two great players. Now, I think that there's a gap between Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel, and I may be proven wrong. We're going to find out. But remember that this started with McDavid. It did not start with Eichel. And Eichel played himself into a situation where he started to be mentioned on the same level with McDavid, and I don't think that he's there yet, because really, who is there? I mean, you're talking about a superstar player, McDavid. I'm still not a big fan of the generational player. I don't like the term generational player until he actually is a generational player. I don't like seeing guys being anointed that way.
I have my questions about Eichel. I think to some extent he became a little overrated by this whole, people were swept up in the idea that there was a second guy and that you would guaranteed one of the two if you finish last. And I think in the eyes of Buffalo fans, and the league feels that way too, I guess, that I really feel he might not be as good as people are making out to be, and the gap might be a little larger. It looked large in that final. It was for BU. He didn't appear to be a generational player that night.
It was good for USA Hockey, I'll tell you that. And don't think that the Sabres in USA Hockey, I mean, they're in cahoots. Look, they're working hand in hand right now, and don't underestimate that. That's a thing. However, Eichel has good size. He's got good speed. He's got very good vision. He led the nation in scoring as a freshman, which is very difficult to do. He won the Hobey Baker, which you can say whatever you want about that. I'm not overly impressed by that, because I've seen so many Hobey Baker players that ended up being nothing. But I think he's going to be a really good player. I think that Buffalo, if he ends up here, they're going to be happy with him. I don't think that it was worth throwing away 2 seasons for.
Okay. Everyone's going to be saying I called him overrated. I mean, there's different degrees of that. I just think they're putting a lot of pressure on this guy, or McDavid, if he comes here.
They're putting unfair pressure on these players.
I'm still hearing people say they're going to improve by 30 points next year. It's going to be a fun year with those kind of expectations.
Sully, they're putting unfair pressure on these players, because when they show up here, you have to understand that these fans are saying these guys invested so much that they were willing to take a 20% chance on McDavid or an 80% chance on Eichel. That is a tremendous amount of expectations on a 18-year-old kid. And as a parent of someone around that age, I cannot imagine what that would be like. Now, they're playing under different situations and pressures, and they're used to dealing with that. This is the NHL, Sully. This is an entirely different beast. So, all right, listen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I just want to touch real quickly on who the Sabres might be looking at as their next coach, and then we'll get to UB, and then we'll get on with the rest of it. So stay with us. First, we have the trivia question, which is easy, Sully, even for you. There you go. Which UB Bull played high school basketball for new head coach and Nate Oates? We'll have the answer when we come back. I think he did.